Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to build AI chatbot agents with custom knowledge. The main difference from standard chatbots is that those agents, they have a panel of experts that they can access, like you see here. And in fact, they can choose in a nonlinear way which experts they're going to use based on the user's question in the chat. So, for example, here I have two different knowledge bases that I connected. One is the expert on n8n, that's a movement framework that I developed, and another one is the expert on polysingularity, that's another framework that I developed. And both of those knowledge bases, they actually come directly from InfraNodus, a visual AI text analysis tool that I developed. So here you have a visualization of those brains that we will use for this agent. One is the brain on polysingularity, and the advantage here is that InfraNodus has an underlying knowledge graph and it knows the main topics, so it has like an overview of that knowledge base. So the responses is going to provide a much more precise. And then another brain is on the n8n here, so we can visualize that brain, a representation of that brain, and then use it and connect it as an expert to the agent in n8n, the tool that we'll be using to build those agents. And by the way, this approach is much easier than using other tools inside n8n, because normally inside here you would need to connect vector storage, deal with embeddings, but I will show you the workflow where you can just upload all the files or import links or any data you want into InfraNodus and then use its API in order to get the knowledge directly from there, so you don't even need to use an AI model to query this knowledge. You will just send a request, get a response from that expert, and then you will consolidate the responses using OpenAI node here, and then the agent will provide a really interesting response. So in the end, we're going to have something like this. I will have a chat and I'm going to ask it, for instance, how can I develop my work further? For instance, a general question about life. As you can see, it's querying this agent. The agent decides that it wants to consult those two experts on that topic because they are both suitable, and then they both provide the responses back to the agent, and then the agent is generating a response that's based on those two approaches. So it's like a concilium of different AIs here, right? One is the answer that incorporates polysingularity approach, and the other one is the response that incorporates n8n approach, which is more about adaptability and resilience. And I can even ask it, can you combine those responses? And because this agent has memory here, it has a simple memory here, it's just able to access the history of the chat conversation and to combine the responses or to respond based on the chat flow. And in this case, as you can see, those two nodes are not highlighted, so it didn't need to consult the experts, and it just provided a response directly because it didn't need them to consolidate the information. So as you can see, the agent is actually deciding itself dynamically which knowledge basis it's going to use. So that's a really great flow, and you can actually use it not only through this chat box inside n8n, but you can also share it publicly. So you can actually make it publicly available, and then you will have a link which you can use to chat with it online. You can share it with other people, you can embed it on different websites. And I will also show you another workflow that actually works the same but in Telegram. So you will have a Telegram chat like this, and then you can ask it any question, and then it's going to consult those experts. You can even use it from your phone or share it with other people, and then it's going to be available to anyone through any chat app. So that's actually really, really good and a really useful workflow. And I really like this approach because it's like being able to consult those two different brains or more brains and to combine the responses together to generate some insight. So it's really interesting if you have, let's say, a collection of research papers on a certain topic, or if you have your own notes and you want to organize them into different graphs, and then you can really use it for any sort of purpose: ideation, developing ideas, consulting research, and so on. So if you would like to know how it works, keep watching and I will demonstrate step by step. So first of all, the tool that we'll be using to build this workflow is called n8n. This is what you're seeing right now on your screen, and I'm going to show you what each node does. And then I'm going to demonstrate the other tool that we're using as a knowledge base here, InfraNodus. And the advantages of InfraNodus, like I mentioned, is that it can ingest almost any text. It also has multiple import options, so you can upload files, CSV, spreadsheets. You can upload Google search results, links, web pages, so anything you want. It's very easy to ingest content here. And then it has this underlying representation based on the knowledge graph. So then when it provides you responses, you can also use its internal AI to provide responses to you. It's actually really precise because it has this underlying graph structure. So when you ask it to generate an answer, it's going to give you a really precise response because it knows what are the main topics, what are the gaps inside. So the quality of responses is really high. And another advantage is that then you don't need to have a complicated technical setup with vector stores, with the different knowledge bases. You can just connect your existing InfraNodus graph here, and each time you update your InfraNodus knowledge graph, the knowledge base is also updated here. So it's really useful and very easy to use. All right, so let me just give you an overview of the workflow inside n8n, and then I will show you how you can build it yourself. So first of all, we need a chat node. And they use nodes in n8n to describe those steps of the workflow that you implement, right? So the first one is the chat node, and this is just something to trigger the beginning of the conversation. Okay, so you will provide some setup here. If you double click on it, then you will be able to give it some information, some presets, also some customizations so that it looks and behaves in the way that you want. And then the other node that we have here is the tool agent node. So it's just an agent node here. And usually what you do is that you say, okay, you will use the connected chat trigger node as the source for the prompt. And then you can also provide a system message that will indicate to the agent which tools it has available and how to use them. In fact, the agent will already know this because you will connect those tools using the nodes here, using the nodes tool. So if you have a good description of the tools, for example, like I have here, I'm describing that this is an expert on 8OS and it's a specialist in variability, movement, physical development, adaptivity and resilience. And then the other expert I just described is the expert on polysingularity. So then this agent will actually know that it has access to those tools, but it makes sense to also describe how they work in the system message. So it knows whom to query. And then you also connect the AI model that you would like to use. In this case, I'm using OpenAI. I like the quality most of all, I think. I'm using GPT-4o model here. You can also choose among different other models. And then you also connect memory to this. So that's basically saying that you need to remember the conversations that your system is having. So this is the overview of the structure, right? You have the triggering chat message. It's received by the agent. The agent is a sort of function that was written by n8n in order to enable access to AI models and to the tools. Then you connect simple memory to it. That's a node available inside n8n. You connect OpenAI model, and then you connect the knowledge bases from InfraNodus. So how do you connect the knowledge bases? I will show you in a second. You go inside InfraNodus, and then you create a new graph. So you go to the apps page, and then you say that you want to create, for example, a new graph here. Let's say we make one using AI generated content, and we decide to make one on the topic of polysingularity. And we will ask it to generate a knowledge graph for us. So then it's going to detect entities inside and make a new graph on this topic. So it will take some seconds. And what you're going to have in the end, I'm just going to switch to this graph so I can demonstrate to you. You will have a set of text statements. So if you generated them with AI, these are AI generated. If you imported web pages, which you can also do in InfraNodus, this will be the content of the web pages. You can also upload documents, CSV, spreadsheets, if you have some tabular data. So in the end, you will have this kind of graph visualized. And then you also have some stats, which are also available to InfraNodus under the hood. So it has this knowledge graph representation where the concepts are indicated with the nodes and the co-occurrences are the connections. Then it understands through that representation what are the main topical clusters here. So for example, in this case, I see that the main topics are focused exploration, dynamic state, growth framework, knowledge structure, right? It also has access to the content gaps. So the different topical clusters that could be better connected, which is also, by the way, used in its responses, because it knows which topics to bridge in order to generate high quality content. And then once you make this representation available, you have access to this graph using the built-in chat inside InfraNodus itself. So I can ask you, what is it about? A very general question, by the way, that wouldn't normally work with a standard RAG flow, but here, because it has a representation of that knowledge graph, it will be able to answer it, because it's going to have access to all the main topics and the concepts. It provides me a nice summary response of what this whole framework is about, right? And here I have a visualization of the AI generated graph on the concept of polysingularity. So you can see it's talking about complexity, diversity, and all the main topics. So I can actually make this graph available to my AI agent as a knowledge. So once I generated the graph, let's connect it to the agent workflow here. So first of all, we need to copy the name of this graph, and to do that we go into the name and then select all, Command C. Then we go back to n8n and we create a new tool. So it's very important that you add this knowledge base using this, not by adding a new node here, but by adding a tool here. And then you can specify that you want to make HTTP request tool, and then you specify that you will send the body, and in the body you will send the name, and this is going to be the value, AI topic polysingularity. That's the name of the graph. Okay, so then we will just in a second provide more details to that knowledge base. So first of all, let me get the one that we use here. So you just need to copy this URL from the existing node, and this you can actually get in the files that I will link to in the description to this video. So then you copy this URL, and this URL is basically the access to the InfraNodus API with some parameters that you need to generate a very summarized response of the main ideas inside. And then you choose post type of request, URL is this, and then you need to provide authentication. With the authentication, it's a little bit complicated because in n8n, it doesn't really work well with bearer authentication. Like normally you would choose generic credential type bearer, but it doesn't work here. There's some bug. I wrote to them already, but I don't have the response yet. So instead you can just choose to send headers, okay? And in those headers, you then provide authentication, and then you type in bearer, and then you go to your InfraNodus page, into your API settings, and then you copy this API key here, you go back, and you paste it after the header, okay? So then once you did that, then you go to send the body, and then you add more information here. You need to actually copy it from the existing node, which you can do here, very easy. So you can copy your request mode, which will be added here. Request mode is going to be a response. That's very important, so you get a nice long response. And then you need another field, which is text, and inside the text you actually let the model define what it's going to provide. So that's actually going to use the agent's logic in order to understand what kind of prompt it needs to do to the model. So we actually name it prompt, not text. So you need to provide the prompt, and then this is going to be used as a prompt to the knowledge base. And once the model sends the question, then InfraNodus knowledge base will generate a response. And we call it expert on complexity. Okay, so we do that, expert on complexity. We have this added here. Let's just verify if we have everything that we need. So we have request mode, prompt defined by the model. And here we can just clarify that also or complexity or complexity tool. So we also list that we have this additional complexity tool. And another thing that we can do is to provide a description of this tool for the agent. So we write here that you are the expert on complexity and you provide insights on that subject. Okay, so now we have 3 experts available. All of them are querying the InfraNodus graph. Now we're good. And then now we can launch this chat again and see how that works. I'm going to clear the log and then I will ask it, I'm in a very complex situation. Can you help me resolve it? So right now the agent receives the response. It actually consulted only the expert on complexity. So let's see what kind of insight it can provide. And by the way, if we click here, we see that it didn't work because we didn't get the right responses. Sometimes there are some problems with the authentication flow, and so we need to just fix this first in order to make it work. It still provided a response, but it's very generic because it didn't get the InfraNodus result. But that's actually good for us because then we can compare. So here you see you have this generic ChatGPT response that just lists the different topics. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to make sure that it's actually having good information. Okay, so I made a mistake. The name of the header parameter was authorization, not authentication. So I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna add authorization, not authentication. And then I'm going to click back and I'm going to relaunch things. I'm in a very complex situation. What to do? Okay, let's see. It's consulting the expert on complexity. And then it means that it's using this brain to get the response here. Okay, so these are all AI-generated wisdoms on the topic of complexity. And here you see it's providing a much more succinct, direct response on the topic. So here it's telling me how it's essential to embrace the concept of polysingularity because I created that brain based on that concept. This approach involves recognizing and navigating multiple interconnected perspectives and potential solutions. By understanding the dynamic interplay between those elements, you can foster resilience and innovation, leading to unexpected breakthroughs and adaptive strategies. Okay, so I can ask how specifically would it work? As you can see, we already have the memory here. Let's see what experts it chooses to consult. So now you see it realizes I need to know more about polysingularity, so it's consulting this expert on polysingularity. It doesn't touch the n8n expert because we are not interested in that right now. So here it's providing this response based on complexity and polysingularity. So now I had two different brains consulted. One was this and the other one was that, which is pretty cool. It's like I'm connecting them together, and here it's giving me some advice, and then I can say how I can use it in physical context. So let's see what happens here. It realizes I'm asking about the physical context, so now it's consulting the n8n expert. So you see it's a very nice nonlinear flow where your chatbot will choose itself which expert it's going to provide a response with, and then it's going to generate an answer for you. So I really like this flow because it feels really contemporary somehow, and also I like the non-linearity of it and the potential for some unexpected responses. And by the way, you can also build the same workflow with Telegram. So I'm just going to save this workflow, go back here, and then we have one here. I think this one should be the right one. So basically, instead of the chat, you're just connecting it to the Telegram trigger. So you create a Telegram bot. It's actually very simple. You just use a bot inside Telegram to create it. And then when you receive a response, you send user feedback that the model is typing something. You use exactly the same flow. And then once the response is ready, you send the message back to the user. So then eventually when you use it inside Telegram, it's going to look something like this. You will interact with it using the standard Telegram interface on your phone or on your desktop, and then you can ask it questions exactly in the same way, and it's going to provide you with responses. So this is how it works. I have many more n8n workflows available that I will share with you, but I wanted to know your opinion on this one and how you think it could be useful for you. Also, if you have any questions or comments or feedback, please let me know. I would be very curious to know if you find it interesting and how you use it in your own applications. Thank you.